Hello friends, in the last video we discussed about lesson planning on integrated learning approach. In this video we will discuss on assessment in integrated learning approach. The objective of this learning unit are, after the completion of this unit, learners will be able to describe learning and assessment, identify the major concerns in students' assessment, differentiate among assessment for learning, assessment as learning and assessment of learning, discuss the assessment techniques in integrated learning approach. Friends, we receive children of different backgrounds and having different learning needs. Each student has its own learning difficulties. Students may face difficulties at each and every stages of learning or at some specific stages of learning. Means there may be learning gaps at any stage of learning. Teacher's role is to identify those learning gaps and use possible interventions to bridge those gaps with all sort of guidance so that each and every student will achieve the targeted learning outcomes. To identify those learning gaps during the teaching learning process, as a teacher, we need to track how well students understand the different subject matters being discussed. Assessment is one of the approaches that help the teacher to realize this. It is an important part of learning and it provides useful feedback that improves the pedagogy. Now let us discuss what is learning and assessment. Learning and assessment being intertwined cannot be segregated or viewed in isolation from each other. Therefore, addressing the two in isolation may not serve the purpose. So, it is important to recognize the nature of learning and assessment in order to understand how children learn at different levels, as this in turn will determine how they can be assessed during the teaching learning process. Some of the important reasons to assess children are to find out what learning and progress took place in a child over a period of time, identify individual and specific needs of the child, plan and improve teaching learning situations in a more suitable and organized way, help the child understand and realize what she or he can or cannot do and what she or he likes or does not like to do. Find out what extent learning outcomes have been achieved or are yet to be achieved. Obtain evidence of children's progress so as to communicate the same to different stakeholders in education. Support and improve every child's learning and development as per his style of learning. Encourage a feeling of confidence amongst the children. Now let us discuss assessment and the nature of assessment. Assessment is gathering evidence of what the students know, can do and able to as a result of their educational experience and student learning. Assessment should be holistic, formative, competency based. It should promote learning. It develop higher order thinking skills and it should be a process. There are mainly three purposes of assessment, that is assessment for learning, assessment as learning and assessment of learning. Assessment for learning occurs when teachers use information to guide the students' learning process. Pre-test, quiz, written, oral, concept maths are the few of the examples for assessment for learning. Assessment as learning occurs when students reflect on and monitor their progress to inform their future learning goals. Self-assessment rubrics, peer assessment rubrics, portfolio are few of the examples for assessment as learning. Assessment of learning occurs when teachers use evidence of student learning to make judgments on students' achievement against goals and standards. Unit test, final projects are few of the examples for assessment of learning. In integrated learning approach, students are generally assessed through assignment-specific rubrics that measure understanding and performance. This method of assessment eliminates the numerical assessment of work in lieu of one that provides greater detail about areas of strength and areas needs for improvement. Let us discuss one assessment rubric which may be used by the teachers during assessment in integrated learning approach. This assessment rubric consists of 4 dimensions such as connections between and among academic disciplines, connections to experience, ability to apply learning across diverse contexts, and reflection and self-assessment. So this assessment rubric consists of 4 dimensions, and basing on the parameters of the specific dimensions, students will be assessed as beginner, developing, competent, and proficient. This is just a rubric presented before you as an example. Teacher may prepare their own rubric and use the same for assessment of learning. The first dimension is connections between and among academic discipline. The learning outcome is identifies and draws insight from connections across disciplinary perspectives, knowledge, and skills. The student who presents examples, facts, and or theories from one or more fields of study or perspective, they will be treated as beginner. The students who connects examples, facts, and or theories from more than one field of study or perspective, they will be treated as developing. Students who will connect and compares examples, facts, and or theories from more than one field of study or perspective, and they will begin to draw conclusions, they will be assessed as competent. Students who synthesizes and or draws conclusions by connecting examples, facts, and or theories from more than one field of study or perspective will be assessed as proficient. The second dimension is connections to experience. The learning outcome is identifies and draws insight from connections across relevant learning experiences, including personal, co-curricular, and academic. The students who identifies relationships between personal or co-curricular experiences and academic content or knowledge will be assessed as beginner. Students who compares relationships between personal or co-curricular experiences and academic knowledge to infer similarities or differences will be assessed as developing. Students who connects examples of personal or co-curricular learning to academic knowledge to deepen understanding will be assessed as competent. Students who synthesizes connections among multiple learning experiences inside and outside of classroom to deepen understanding and broaden point of view will be assessed as proficient. The third dimension is ability to apply learning across diverse contexts. The learning outcome is applies knowledge, skills, abilities, theories, and or methodologies across different learning experiences inside or outside the classroom. Students who apply skills, knowledge, theories, and or methodologies from one learning experience to another will be assessed as beginner. Students who apply skills, knowledge, theories, and or methodologies from one learning experience to another to explore problem or issue will be assessed as developing. Students who apply skills, knowledge, theories, and or methodologies from one learning experience to another to explain problem or issue will be assessed as competent. Students who applied skills, knowledge, abilities, methodologies from one learning experience to another to offer solutions to a problem or issue will be assessed as proficient. The fourth dimension is reflection and self-assessment. The learning outcome is demonstrates a developing sense of self as a learner, building on prior experience to respond to new and challenging contexts. Students who describe strengths and challenges in a general learning context and demonstrates limited or no ability to reflect on experiences and or examine personal identity as a learner will be assessed as beginner. Students who describe strengths and challenges within a specific learning context and demonstrates emergent ability to reflect on experiences and or examine personal identity as a learner will be assessed as developing. Students who describes and evaluates strengths and challenges, begins to describe self over time and in different contexts, demonstrates ability to reflect on experiences and examine personal identity as a learner will be assessed as competent. Students who critically evaluates strengths and challenges, connects current sense of self to past and future selves across multiple and or diverse contexts, consistently demonstrates ability to reflect on experiences and examine personal identity as a learner will be assessed as proficient. Some other common assessment approaches are direct observation, making models, PPT, simulations, concept map, etc., portfolios, reflective journal, posters, short answer questions, and presentation, written reports also. Prepare assessment rubrics for each of the approaches discussed and assess the learners accordingly. While assessing the learner, a teacher should be non-judgmental, non-comparative, non-competitive, non-threatening, assess both individual and group performances, assess both verbal and non-verbal expressions of the student, and don't forget to assess life skill development through this process. Thank you friends for watching this video where we discussed on assessment in integrated learning approach. We just explained one rubric. You may prepare your own rubric to assess during the integrated learning lesson plan or in integrated learning approach. Thank you again for watching this video.